Yay. Yes, we have Nicole gracing our presence this evening. And for those on who maybe have not met Nicole, she is our CEO and co-founder. So everyone, just say hi to Nicole. Hi, Nicole. I love it. Awesome.
Nicole
awesome.
rocks.
Heck yeah. Ooh,
Wood.
All right.
It's wood, not rock.
Oh,
Coming in hot
Your
with
dad's
that joke right off the bat.
Coming
Have
right, you
to.
gotta start with that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Oh my gosh. All right. So we have a great group tonight. I'm really excited about this. For those who do not know, my name is Jill. I am the client success and event specialist here with Amlavita. I'm also the health and wellness coach. So I get to do basically all of my favorite things in one job. Super awesome. And so with that, we get to create special members only events for our lovely members. We've done a few of these in the past, but this one is a little bit different in the sense that we are really just focusing on all of you and helping you through the dreaded yuck networking, especially given this day and age. This is something that love it. Side note, everyone, really quick, if you want to go ahead, share your LinkedIn in the chat box, say hi to each other, introduce each other. We're going to be talking lots tonight. But yeah, we're just really excited. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our clients, from you guys, saying that given this weird digital age we're kind of in right now, that networking is not as appealing and maybe not as opening as it has been in the past. And so the first part of this conversation tonight, or this workshop tonight, is going to be hearing from our career and leadership experts. We have Coach Sherry on. We're going to do quick introductions for anyone who might be working with different coaches. We have Coach John, Coach Kate, and they're going to be sharing all of their expertise on networking, how to feel more confident, how to go about kind of this funky little weird Zoom fatigue, digital age, whatever you want to call it right now. And then at the end, we are going to save some time for us to break out into breakout rooms so that you can actually network with each other. So we're really excited for that. And people are still coming in. So I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so we can introduce everyone and get this party started. All right. And then I love that you guys are still, go ahead. Yes. Continue to share your LinkedIns in the chat. And also, again, throughout, since we have more of an intimate group, if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box. I'll be watching that throughout while our coaches take over. But if you, towards the end or even throughout, I feel like you can unmute yourself and ask any questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. All right. How to not hate networking. Love it. All right. So this is just a default page. You already very much well know who Amlavita is. And here we have Coach John. John, say hi, introduce yourselves, give us a good dad joke for people who might not know who you are.
Dad jokes are so hard to come up with on the spot. You know, it's not like they're apparent.
Yeah, right. Please.
Okay.
Got ahead of myself. Love it, John.
Yeah, slip that under the radar. I'm the director of career services. I'm a dad, as has been pointed out, and that's all you need to know about me. Most of you already know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go. Sorry, John.
No, we're cutting you off, John. That's it. That's the end.
You're
The
done.
music
No more
starts
John
playing
talk.
like in the award shows. Time to go.
The gong, yeah, the hook has come out. Someone hit the gong. You have to with me.
Oh,
All
right.
That's it. I really know.
That really is it. Okay. All right. Kate, introduce yourself. Kate is one of our newer leadership coaches to the team. Welcome, Kate. Say hi.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And I saw a few clients on the call and a couple that I'm going to start working with, and I can't wait to meet you as well. I'm a leadership coach here, but as the clients that I work with on the call know, I definitely have expertise, and I touch on the career and life space as well. It's all encompassing, right? Like the type of person that we are, the type of leader we are, the types of careers that we choose. So I'm a very holistic way that I approach my coaching, and just really excited to dive into this topic that I think for a lot of us feels I think unnatural, and there's some stigma around it. And I'm hoping that through this dialogue, we can help maybe clear that up and find some strategies for actually learning how to love networking. So excited to get started.
Amazing. Thanks, Kate.
Hello. I'm
Sherry.
I'm a career and leadership specialist here at Amala Vida, and I cannot top what Kate said. I coach up and down career and leadership, and networking is a hot spot for me. It's one of my areas of specialty, helping you figure out how, when, where, best places to do it, how to make it effective, how to leverage whatever your networks are so that networking feels comfortable for you, and how to adapt it so that it doesn't have to be the way you were always taught. There's lots of different ways to network. So I'm in agreement with Kate. Hopefully at the end of this time today, you'll have some things that you come away with that feel good for you to do and feel within your comfort zone.
Awesome. Well, thanks, coaches. Appreciate that. Let's jump right in. So throughout this, so we are just for the information part, we are going to do, our coaches that are just going to share, we're going to have these group chats, which we definitely invite you guys all to unmute yourself, engage, ask questions, keep the conversation going. And then of course our coaches are going to be sharing some tips, tools, different tips that we can carry on with networking. So with that, would love to hear. So feel free, you can share in the chat box, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself, but would love to hear from the group. What does networking mean to you? Oops, there you go.
Okay, it's not just me, at least, that you're blowing by.
No, it's just technology.
I will start while everybody's thinking of what they want to say. Networking to me is both scary and exciting. So the fear for me is I now have to talk to people. I might not know them. They don't know me. What if I have spinach in my teeth? What if I have toilet paper on my shoe? So like there's a lot of fear. And then, the exciting part is, I'm going to meet a new person. What are they, what's cool? What do we have in interest? What do we have in common? What can I learn from them? Do I know someone they might know? Can I connect them with someone? So for me, those are the two areas that networking, that's what it means to me. And then of course you apply that out, tell two friends, and what does it mean for me professionally? What does it mean for me personally? And so those are my areas from it.
Love that.
Hi, this is Lisa. For me, hi. So professional networking to me it's easy enough in terms of connecting the dots. It's the social networking. My challenges come if I'm just at a social gathering and chit chat. So being able to create the blend going in and out of those two worlds, both the social and the professional.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I had an interesting networking moment that just came up organically for me about 2 days ago. I feel it's very representative. So a few lifetimes ago, I worked in business development in the prosthetics industry, artificial limbs. Well, on Twitter, someone who I do not know had a friend who suffered a traumatic injury and lost a limb and needed resources regarding prosthetics and that whole process. And they know nothing, as most people know nothing. Well, a friend of that person's happens to be an old college buddy of mine who tagged me in Twitter asking me if I still knew anyone, and I happened to exactly know the right person in the right city to get that person the resources they need and make their transition a little easier. So this strange journey of person I don't know to college friend to me to excellent prosthetist and lymph loss specialist. That's networking. It's being able to cross these boundaries that go beyond your immediate circle of who I work with today, or who are my best friends, or who are my family, and expand it into a much wider network that can be based on even one little interaction, but that can stick with you and really help bring people resources that they need at just that right moment. So that's illustrative to me of what networking really means. It's a value-added conversation. It doesn't have to be deeply intimate, but it's value add, and it's helpful, and it's people you like.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I just want to comment on something that Chris said in the chat. Hi, Chris. He's one of my clients. It should be mutually beneficial, right? And it's Johnny, it's funny that you were saying about, it doesn't have to be super deep. I'm an extrovert, but I also have some kind of introverted tendencies in that I really like to build deep connection and be in relationship with people. So I would also argue to some degree in regard on that vein of like being mutually beneficial, right? Like it's sort of, and I don't mean to say this to like intimidate anyone further, but it's kind of like dating or like finding a friend, right? It should feel, there should be some, that kind of feeling that's like, okay, we get each other, right? And that, I trust you, and it, there's just kind of some magic and some, that kind of intangible feeling there that it's like, I trust you, and we can move forward, and we can also, it's a two-way thing. Like I can help you, you can help me. So I would just like to offer that. But Chris, you're so right. You often have 10 awkward conversations before you get to that. Similarly to dating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I find interesting is that we read a book for book club. We have an ALV book club. I don't know if we're starting again, but we did. And we read a book by Adam Grant. I don't remember the name of it because it wasn't my favorite book we ever read. What was the Nicole,
Give and
what's the name of it?
take. Give and take.
Give and Take. Okay.
Mhm.
And the premise of the book, and if anyone's read it, please correct me if I have it totally incorrect, because I'm gonna own it that I didn't finish the book because I didn't love it. But the basic premise was givers and takers. And I think that buys into networking a lot. Some people are connectors, some people give, some people take, sometimes it's mutually benefit. And I think, to the fact that, John, Jill, Kate, myself, and Nicole as coaches here, we all have different strengths. And when you're in your networking mode, you've got to lean into what your area of strength is, because we're all going to network differently. Previous to coming on this call, we were having a parenting conversation, and we were talking about the differences, and kids are different, so you have to parent differently. This is not dissimilar to that. So for somebody like Kate, she needs to develop those deeper relationships, then that's what's going to work for her to network. And it's not going to be successful for her unless she can feel that connection or feel that trust. I'm a connector. I don't mind collecting, and I don't mean to say it this way, but I don't mind collecting connections, because if I can find a way to connect people, whether I have a deep relationship or not, that works for me. So definitely keep in mind that you got to lean into what your areas of strength are going to be and find the best way to be successful. Because Chris is right, you'll have 10 awkward conversations. And that may be okay for you. I don't mind having an awkward conversation, but I can tell you, my husband or my son, that's probably on a list of 100 things, 101 of what they'd rather do. So you have to lean into what's good for you.
Yeah.
On that note, people, there's a couple of comments in the chat here about that initial conversation being, the worst part. Well, this is one of the beauties of the internet era of networking, because there's some tricks you can do. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of veering right to the tactical a little bit here, but veering into things you can do like on LinkedIn or other platforms that you can't do in real life. Nicole, who's on this call, Nicole and I would occasionally do this thing where we'd have basically conversations with each other, but on LinkedIn, right? She'd post something, I'd post something funny, she'd post a witty response, right? And we would just have this back and forth that could easily have been texts or Slack messages or emails, but we do it in some sort of public platform. And then neither of us has to do the thing where we're initializing a conversation with someone else, but we're visible, and people do chime in and they see the back and forth. So you can get a networking buddy and you can have conversations with each other, and neither of you has to reach out to an unknown third party. but you can have this conversation that you want to be visible in a way that feels no different from texting one another, except it's on LinkedIn or on Twitter or something like that. And you can, be using hashtags and things like that. So if you and another friend both want to be known or start talking about a certain industry, you can start talking about that in one thread with each other, throwing in occasional hashtags, maybe tagging somebody else if it feels good. But that's a great way for you and someone else who maybe also isn't this very gregarious person who has no problem just cold messaging 400 people, and still get visibility and still be networkable, because it's not just about what you said, it's also about how visible you are and how much people can network with you.
Yeah, and I think to that point, sorry, just one more thing I would add on that. BFG wrote in there, like having someone to go with you to these events. Obviously right now is a weird time, right? We're not doing those live events, but I think that there's some truth to that, right? Like asking for intros, right? Through common, if you're someone like me who needs that deeper connection, finding who those people are that you trust that then can make those connections. Going to smaller gatherings, right? Which is obviously applicable right now. But also like there's ways that you can network which actually don't require you to connect with people, like maybe writing a blog post about something that is interesting to you, that is, your talent and kind of your secret sauce as a way to market yourself. So think about some things like that could also help networking, and kind of think about it in a different way that's not so like, I'm going to this event with all these people that I don't know and I have to have the small talk chit chat, and that just feels like something I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, I love that. So kind of like establishing yourself as the expert while opening up, blogs, posts, whatever it might be, opening up that conversation with other people. And I love that. I love getting creative. I feel like in my experience, like networking has been more of like a mindset. It's not necessarily just, which I've also experienced myself in job search. And I know you can relate to this and talk to this as well, as like, you don't want, this is from John, definitely from John, is that you don't want networking just to be an on-off switch. It's not just when you need to network, it's networking all the time. And I feel like that's really important as well, in the sense of helping maybe to release some of that awkwardness, that instead of it just being this, okay, I'm going to go network, it's just kind of making it more of like a lifestyle, or maybe more of just like an overall mindset.
100%. I mean, so many people, first off, they try to network in the dark. They try to network secretly, right? Like they're scouring industry pages or LinkedIn profiles for people to message, but they never want any visibility on themselves. And the best networking really happens when you aren't saying to yourself, I'm going to network right now. It's when you just, like Jill said, put yourself in that mindset of, hey, I read something that made me laugh or made me smile or made me think. And instead of going, that was interesting, and scrolling by, you should offer some positive affirmation and say, hey, thanks for posting this. That was great. Or, hey, I got something out of this. That's networking. You don't think of it that way because you didn't sit down and say, this is networking mode and I'm in this box. But all of those things, little positive compliments you send other people's way, little bits of support that you do, even just signal boosting, sharing something someone else posted, are all great ways to get into that networking mindset. And you do it all the time. You kind of put it at this low grade, like the burner, you put it on low to just set it to simmer. You set your network to simmer all the time. You don't crank it to boil when you need it and turn it all the way off when you don't.
Well, I think
That's definitely a quote. Set your networking to simmer.
Right. Set your network, but sometimes we forget that networking doesn't just have to happen on LinkedIn. And
Right.
that's, that's where the key is. So if you share an interest with somebody, you're in a biking club, hell, Peloton right now, right? If you're riding Peloton with somebody, all of those people who are riding, you now have a shared interest with, but they all do something other than ride Peloton all day, right? They're doing something else. Is it something work related? Is it an initiative? So that's also a place where you want to make sure you're really not forgetting that. And that's why that network on Simmer is so, I'm going to borrow that.
Free to use for everybody.
Networking on Simmer is the key. It's always in your mindset. who are
Mhm.
you? And not necessarily what can you do for me or what can I do for you, but hey, we have this shared interest. What else? What else is it? What else is in our purview? I'm always,
that.
I have a couple of my clients on this call too, and I'm sure some of them are laughing behind their mute that I'm always saying that. I'm like, not people do something besides your shared interest. Everyone doesn't like Peloton all day. They must do something. Is it something that works for you? So I love that. Networking on Simmer. Okay, clients on the call.
Yeah.
Oh,
You'll
can
be
Love
hearing
it.
from me this week.
I am listening and my anxiety level just spiked because I'm like, oh my God, I have to be on all the time. So help me.
Uh,
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
how I
have to
felt.
be.
Yeah, I don't.
Valid. Fair.
Yeah,
Fair. I'll let the coaches explain that one.
absolutely true. You don't have to have the anxiety spike because I think I would want to redefine what on means, right? And the redefinition of what on means is actually recognizing that on can be 5% of what most people think it is. It's not a matter of, oh, at every second of every day, I have to be ready to pitch my talents or deliver my elevator speech or, be ready with these bullet points from my resume memorized or anything like that. It's more of an openness to having conversations when people do ask you about those things and showing the interest in others. The easiest, least anxiety driving ways to network are to offer things, not ask for things. One of my prior clients, she was high level in the marketing world, was trying to find a really perfect. She's like, I want my next thing to be the thing I do till retirement. I've got maybe 10 years to retirement. I don't want to switch jobs again. So I really want to be selective. And she's getting into the marketing swing. And I said, you are a genius in what you do. You have tons of experience. You've started and sold. I mean, you have all this valuable experience. Instead of networking in this way where you're trying to ask, put something out there that says, hey, I have a ton of experience I'd love to share with anybody that needs it. Here's my Calendly link. Half an hour call with me is free. Just go ahead and jump. Or my DMs are open. Ask me anything. Putting something out there, the anxiety level drops tremendously because you're staying right within your zone of genius. You're saying, here's the thing I know really well. Feel free to ask me any questions about it. And then even people that don't necessarily take advantage of it, they see you. They see you. They see that you're offering help. They see that you're trying to bridge the gap by you building the bridge. They see that you are offering, the hand up to the next rung lower on the ladder instead of trying to reach to the next rung above you. You're not always networking up. When you do that, everybody sees it, and it really can boost your confidence. It can drive the anxiety down because you're within your comfort zone, and it just feels good. It feels good that you're helping people, which can put you in a higher comfort zone. So being open to those kind of conversations, don't get into that mindset trap of I've got to be ready as if I had a business card printed on my hand every second of every day. It does not have to be that way at all.
Yeah, I love that.
I really
Yeah.
like the question that Shanti asked.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Shanti's a great question.
Yeah, because I think there's like some tactical things here, right? So we know, like, research shows us that having mentors and mentorship sets us up for success at like a very, early in our career, right? Similar to internships. So I would say, like, if you don't have a mentor, go out there and seek someone out. And in terms of kind of the tactical, like, have a recurring calendar notice with that person, right? And it doesn't have to be like, it could be rescheduled, but like what I found is like having, like, just similarly to having a coach, right? Like having that person that's accountable, that's going to give you that advice and make those connections with you. That's where I feel like the magic happens. And that's something that's really, I feel like, actionable, Shanti, that you're looking for. Like, how many hours a week? Like, what should that look like, right? Well, if you know that that's coming up on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis, it's there for you. And it, you can prepare for it. You can find whatever system is going to work for you and that other person. But I think having that accountability, I think, is really key.
So I love that advice. Kate, can you just expand on telling people the difference between a coach and a mentor? Because I think a lot of people think they're the same.
I really
Great
love
point.
that clarity. Yeah. So A mentor is going to be much more directive, right? They're going to tell you what to do, which is kind of ironic because I feel like we're kind of telling you what to do here. This is what coaches shouldn't do. But essentially a coach is going to help you, they see you as having a lot of the answers, right? So if we're doing our job effectively, we're going to get to the heart of what is it that you need and where do you want to go from where you are today to this desired future, and really help you get to those answers. You need both, right? Like you need that person who's going to sit in the passenger seat with you and help you drive the car. And then you need that person that's going to be the backseat driver to say, like, turn left here. That's your mentor, is the backseat driver. Your coach is sitting in the front seat with you.
Love that.
It's a great analogy.
One of the things that I love about networking, especially with mentors or finding what's comfortable for you, Shanti, is just that piece. Find what works for you. If LinkedIn isn't your thing, find what is your thing. And again, networking takes place across the board, but building something that works for you is what's going to be most successful. Trying to do it someone else's way is never going to set you up for the level of success that you're looking for. So if you're a person who likes things scheduled and you like to calendar, then calendar it. If you're a person who kind of just develops routines and does things on the fly and that's successful, do it that way. You really have to figure out for yourself where that flies. Like I will tell you, for me, for my LinkedIn engagement, I feel like 3 times a week is good for me. And I'm a little oversharing, but I do it in the bathroom. Like everyone takes their phone to the bathroom at some point with them. It's like, that's my LinkedIn time. And
now
I know that works for me. Now you all know.
Choice architecture is a big deal. If you take, even on my phone, I don't have the Twitter app on my phone, right? But I do have LinkedIn app on my phone. When I have my work stack, my preset saved list of tabs that opens every morning when I log into work, LinkedIn's one of them. Just things like that, rather than saying to myself, I have to do LinkedIn X times, I just make sure that, and again, I'm using LinkedIn as the example because I use LinkedIn a lot, but Sherry's right, it could be any number of different things. It could be industry specific boards, it could be subreddits, it could be anything, but putting it right in front of you, putting it in front of you closer than whatever else might distract you. It's sort of like taking the chocolate and hiding it in the back of the cabinet and putting a bunch of healthy food in front of the cabinet before it. So you have to move that healthy food in order to get to the chocolate. It's just like that, putting things closer to you that are the things you want to do, making them easier to fall into.
I'm so glad you said that out loud. I thought I was the only one that does that with my chocolate.
I love
Well, for me, it's to protect it from the little ones that can't reach it.
So my favorite thing of what's happening right now is I'm watching the chat, and you are, just so you know, for those of you in the chat who are now speaking to each other, that's networking. Just so in case you're wondering what you're doing in that chat, that's networking, answering each other's questions, being there for each other while we're having this conversation over Zoom. You're doing it.
Right.
100%.
Yeah, it's not just pitching each other. I think people do have that impression of networking as always people in power clothes, at some sort of highball event, and all they're doing is exchanging LinkedIn headlines at each other. But no, it really is more organic than that. It's more organic conversation. And I also agree that being networkable is a key component of this. I spend almost all of my networking time, the time that I, in retrospect, consider networking, being findable rather than finding people. I'm writing things. I'm making sure I'm very visible, and I show up. I fill the front page of a Google search of my name. It's so funny because apparently Nicole has a Google alert set up for my name, so every once in a while something will ping, and she will notice it before I do and ping me on it. But doing those things again within your comfort zone. That doesn't mean you have to be this tremendously prolific blogger or you have to post every day or anything like that. But it does mean that the percentage overall of what you post about, the majority of that percentage should be sort of what you want to be known for, right? A networking lesson that I kind of give is, that I give to some clients, is people only know what you tell them, right? They can't read minds, they don't have crystal balls, so they only know what you tell them. And on average, if you've posted 100 things online ever in your life, nobody who meets you and interacts with you has read all 100 of those. They may have seen 5 to 10%. So you have to play the averages a little bit and make sure that you are being intentional about what you share. And of course, many online things kind of stay around forever. So if you want to be known for XYZ skill or belonging to XYZ industry, or even just a certain personality trait, or you want to be known as the helpful person, you want to be known as this, make sure that's pretty prominent. Make sure that you're not muddying those waters with a lot of things that are irrelevant. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's your life and your world, but just know that whatever you talk about, that's what people hear.
Love it.
Keyword engagement. No matter where you're doing it, is just be engageable, engage people, just continually engage.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so we do have a few more. I love this. I thought we would need more group chat questions to keep the conversations going, but you guys are doing such a great job. I love it. So we do have a few other questions, which I feel like we've I do want to save enough time. So maybe like 10 more minutes, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms. How do you guys feel good about that? So we do have let me actually make sure. And also to the point, who was asking, Christine. So we have a really great blog post on that literally talks exactly the difference between coach, mentor, sponsor. So I love that. So we'll definitely share. I'm making notes of resources to share. So anyone asking about this, also Kimberly and Christine, look at you guys networking. Look at you building relationships together. Love that. Yes, mentor is more someone not in your manager chain. I love that. But to answer any additional questions, we'll be able to share that. So another question, which I just want to make sure that we get to it was from Kimberly, is I find it hard to gracefully wrap up conversations on a timely basis. Got any tips? I usually set a 30-minute meeting, or I guess you guys are probably able to read these, right? Coaches, John, Sherry, are you guys able to read the chat box? Yeah. Okay, so I will read all of Kimberly's, but great question, Kimberly.
Kimberly, I can take this on. Go. I'll go. Informational interviews is my area, dude.
Yes.
Just saying. So Kimberly, your plan is good. Just watch your time and try to smidge earlier. So if you've set your timer for 30 minutes, you want to start wrapping up at about 20. If you have a 20-minute phone call, you only have 10 minutes of conversation, knowing that once you ask that final question of, is there anyone else I could talk to, or you're done using your manners, you want to leave them that extra time. And you can also always literally hard stop it by saying, I really appreciate you giving your time and I want to be respectful of it. So it's always, we're going to just be done now. Thank you so much. I'm going to follow up with you. That gives you the opportunity to have another engagement with them, to have another outreach. And always anytime you do any informational interviewing, where are my clients, what am I going to tell you? Manners count, kindness counts, always thank, always be appreciative, and always follow up. You always want to build in that I need to talk to you again kind of piece, whether it's a shared interest, whether it's a thank you, whether it's, I know we ran out of time, can you please, is there anyone else you think I should speak to? Can you connect me? Whatever it is, you always want to build in that next time, because that's what builds those relationships that Kate and John were both talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's that I can't add too much because that was super good. No, it's exactly right. If you leave people wanting more, if you end a conversation when they'd rather talk to you for 5 more minutes, then they'll want to talk to you again. So if you leave it before you've gotten to every last little thing, and a really powerful end of any conversation question that serves you in just about every conversation ever is, of course, over the top gratitude. You can never be too gracious. You will never burn a bridge by showing too much gratitude, but you over the top gratitude and say, now that you know more about what I'm looking for, or what my story is, or now that you know more about me, who else do you think I should talk to? If you end every conversation with who else do you think I should talk to, that ensures that you really only have to do that initial awkward cold call network kind of thing twice, 3 times before then you just never have a dead end again in the rest of your networking career. because everybody knows somebody else. There is not a single person you will ever meet on this earth who the only person they know is you. There's always someone else they're connected to on the other side that you can then ask. They'll go, oh, you know what? Now that you mention it, because you said this, you've got to talk to my friend Jane. She's whatever. And then you talk to Jane, and then Jane introduces you to somebody else. So asking that question and getting in the habit of asking that specific question at the end of any conversation can really expand your network tremendously.
Love that.
Hi, Chris. I saw your message. Yeah, just say thank you. I mean, maybe this is sort of like old school of me, but I think that there's so much value in like a handwritten thank you note too. I feel like that's like a really nice touch, or it can just be in the email, right? But I feel like, you can say thank you, but I feel like following it up in your own words sometimes to like have that time to process, like, what is it that I want to say to make it seem really genuine? That can be really helpful too.
Bonus tip, Chris, not even just for Chris, for all of you, associate that with something that was said in the conversation. That's a really easy way to show gratitude without having to go over the top, or just, hey, I really liked when we talked about, thank you so much. It shows you were listening. It shows, it shows that you were attentive. It reiterates that connection piece.
Love that.
I like a bonus tip. I always feel better with a bonus tip.
I love that.
Another awkward situation, stepping into chat rooms or table. Well, guess what? We're going to practice some of that tonight. So we're going to get a little bit of
yes, we
practice.
are.
Kim is going to jump in the hot tub with me. I love that,
great.
Kim.
You're going to hang up.
No, don't.
Don't leave.
You know what? What honestly, even and I know I come across as a very gregarious person, but I have the same sort of this anxiety as anybody. And one of the things that I think about is when I'm about to jump into the hot tub, I think about there are only two possible scenarios for the other people. A, they're exactly as nervous as me, and we'll end up laughing about that. Or they're not nervous, so they're going to be super welcoming, and they're going to help me kind of pull me in. There's no third option. Nobody goes to those things to be mean, right? So they're either going to be someone else that you then connect with there, or they're going to be that one person that maybe is an old hat at this, or is a little bit more natural, and is going to know that they're the icebreaker and welcome everybody in. So finding those two things and recognizing that those are really the only two outcomes. When I say to people, when you send a cold message, let's say, there's only two outcomes. You get a nice response, or you get no response, because maybe they're busy, maybe they're, but you never get a mean response, right? Nobody ever takes the time out of their day to write back to you and say, how dare you try to connection request me on LinkedIn, you peasants, right? Never ever happens.
Yeah. And I think too, we create a lot of stories around networking. And, it's this thing where if we just break it down into, okay, I'm going to open up my laptop. I am going to type out sentences. I am going to hit send. And so it's like, it's breaking down that whole idea of, and I think Shanti is still on, we talk about this a lot, is like, we create these stories in our head of this thing that we end up feeling so far away from, when really all we have to do is, it's just like the stories that we're telling ourselves, these stories of, rejection or whatever it might be. But to John's point, so you got two options. They don't respond, or they say yes, and then there you go. But it's just kind of breaking it down into, instead of being like, okay, all right, I'm going to go networking. I'm going to network. It's like, I'm just going to go on LinkedIn and I'm just going to go like a few posts, and I'm going to go comment on a few posts. And you know what? Maybe I'm just going to shoot a really quick, I am not even going to call this networking. I am just going to write a message to someone. There you go. It's just recognizing that there are so many different things that we create a lot of stories up in our head, when really it's just putting one foot in front of the other.
And you can
That's
also
so true.
Face-to-face networking,
Yes,
you can own
Shanti.
it. You can say, you know what, I'm very uncomfortable, or this makes me nervous, because a lot of times even just naming it
Mm.
diminishes it, and it makes the other person also feel comfortable. They're like, oh, you really shouldn't feel that way. So sometimes even owning it, if you're in a different networking space, helps. When I teach public speaking and I turn red, I know this sounds funny. I don't actually like to public speak. And I turn bright red whenever I'm put in a situation that I have to do it that I'm not prepared for. And when I'm in those situations, a lot of times I'll start usually my speech by something like, am I red today? Because normally I turn red. Once I say that, the red goes down. Same
Mhm.
thing with networking.
Ooh.
Once you own it, it diminishes it for the other person, because there's nothing you've already put it out there. So that's a face-to-face tip.
Love that, Sherry. Love it. Name it.
Even the power of names, and that works both ways too. It's related to networking, but as a hiring manager and as someone who conducts interviews, I found that over the past couple of years, a trick that I've started doing is when I'm inviting someone to an interview, somebody that's going to interview for a role, for a job, I never use the word interview. When I send a note, I say, hey, let's have a chat about this open role, or hey, let's talk about possibly working together. And I never use the word interview. And what I found is the candidates that talk to me, their comfort level, I mean, it's double what you typically expect. They're
Mm.
just so more open. I get much more honesty out of them. I get people where they truly are instead of super wound tight, because I never use that word interview, which feels like the most stressful scenario you can be in. Don't use the word networking. If that word is an anxiety driver for you, don't use the word. It doesn't change the behavior at all, but eliminate the word from your vocabulary. And we could say right here, hey, what do you find the most challenging with having conversations with people in 2021? And you'd answer that question differently. You know, you wouldn't necessarily think of it in the same way, but ultimately that's what this is.
Hmm.
Hey,
I
Jill,
like that. Yes.
can you in I know you're taking notes about what to follow up with. I think your TFAR graphic would be
Mhm.
an awesome addition to follow up with this. Even maybe take us through that, for people who are struggling to reframe what networking feels like and how to do
Ooh.
it. That might be a good piece.
That's great. You know, maybe I'll do a little, just like kind of record a little short video explaining the process. Ooh, I love that. That is a great
Look at this,
idea.
4 coaches for the price of 3. You thought this was going to be a 3-host event. You actually got a 4th coach expert on this.
Oh, I dig it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so we are at 6:40. Well, I guess Central Time. I know we had a few other group kind of just discussions, but given time, I do want to respect everyone's time. John, you guys, coaches, do you have any other of these questions that you would like to dig into? Do we want to break out into the breakout rooms, or are there a few? Do we want to maybe do one more, or what do you think?
I would pose to the group too, right? I mean, I think that there's so much value in us networking with everyone too, but like what would everyone on this call feel like to be really served in this space, in this capacity?
Look at you, Kate. Look at that. Look at you just swooping right in. I totally dig it. I agree with word usage. Term networking or sales instantly makes me anxious. Ooh,
Totally.
yes. And be aware of that. So this is my coaching moment, is observe those patterns. What are the words that trigger anxiety? Where are those? So this is kind of the TFAR thing, which you'll see. But I do feel that like acknowledging and recognizing, ooh, okay, so when I start hearing networking, or if I start hearing interview or cover letter or whatever it is, acknowledge that and kind of name it, like what Sherry said, and then just be aware, okay, all right, so I know that networking gets me really activated, gets me really nervous. What's something else that I can call it, so that I don't have to let that story of networking get in the way of me actually taking action on that. So I love that. I love that, Kate. Okay, so now, go ahead.
I'll say mine is one-on-ones. I have, for 2 years, I've been having one-on-ones with the most supportive and fantastic bosses ever. And I'm not just saying that because they're on this call. And 100% of them every time, but 100% of them every time have been like great and everything you'd want in a support conversation. And yet still, when I see the one-on-one on my calendar an hour away, I start to, I got a one-on-one with the boss coming up. You know, So the power of language, it really does affect everyone. It sticks with you. So yeah, frame things out, use Post-it notes, get a journal, and instead of labeling it networking, label it conversations, name your Google Doc something else, whatever it is that takes that power away and replaces it with something that makes you feel confident.
Yeah, I love that. And also recognizing that it's just a word. So like if networking creates so much anxiety, but conversations doesn't, well, okay, so it's just the power of a word. There's nothing really scary or life-threatening in that. It's just a word, right? So knowing that we can work through that, we can work around it and just kind of move through that barrier of just a word, right?
We're always talking about reframing things. Let's reframe that thought. Let's reframe this. And that's what this is. It's reframing. And if anybody on the call has ever used visualization techniques, this is a good place to use them. Just visualize yourself doing it, being successful, becomes muscle memory. It's not so scary. If I've already done it and I've already been good at it, then I can just keep doing it, whatever it is for you.
Yeah. I love
And it's
that.
like, it's like not only just the word itself, I think it's like the mindset around it and focusing on the greater benefits of it, right? Like, it's like, what am I going to be able to get out of this? Ultimately, like what's the end goal? What's the big picture, right? Is it an opportunity to learn? Is it an opportunity to grow? Okay, then let's reframe that, right? So yeah.
Love that.
I'm just sorry, I'm looking at these funny.
These are great. So this is interesting. So thank you guys. We'll still save time for the networking piece, but we'll finish up this right now. So Lisa, I have follow-up issues. I'm easily distracted. Shanti as well. Seems there's something more urgent that comes up I need to deal with, but the time that I'm done dealing with that urgent thing, networking or other preferred item has fallen off my priority list.
Oh, there's a golden two birds, one stone moment here. Some urgent thing has come up. Ask for advice. So an urgent problem has landed on your desk, a new fire, some sort of emergency, some sort of problem. Hey, in order to reframe and get into a good creative mode to solve that problem, or even just to avoid reacting too emotionally, why don't you jump on LinkedIn real quick? Ask for, throw a post up with it asking for a piece of advice. Hey, has anybody else ever dealt with difficult coworker scenario A? Or hey, does anyone have any expertise in particular type of technology? You just ask. If nothing else, it gives you a moment to kind of recenter, and then you tackle your problem having thought about it for an extra 2 minutes, which can really help you. Best case scenario, you get a bunch of really great advice from people who now are A, experts in a topic, or at least have good advice, and B, are the kind of people that will help and reach out. So they're great potential networking targets. So there's a great way to kind of two birds, one stone there is make these kind of conversations a default response to the urgencies. When those urgent, emergent matters come up, just incorporate this in your process response.
And then what about in terms of, so actually Shanti and Lisa, I'm curious, is this following up in the sense of you've already had a conversation or you've already discussed, and then is there maybe some fear in following up that we might be looking for distractions, or are you thinking more so in the sense of you just completely forget to follow up with the conversation following a meeting? Okay. So I know for me, in terms of just project management, more just falls off my radar screen and forgets it. So anytime if you're having a conversation or whatever it is, put that in your calendar. I use calendars. I use calendar reminders, calendar invites for everything. Any meetings that I host, I'm setting a reminder to send that email recap out. Any meetings that I attend, that's my process in terms of when you have that use Post-its, whatever it might be. If you have that conversation, you have that or that chat, whatever it maybe it's in person, is just scheduling that right away. Scheduling that follow-up right away as just a reminder. What else do you guys have?
A really good way to do that is as soon as you're done. Sometimes you can even set it up ahead of time. Write the email, leave it in your drafts, As soon as you're done with whatever it is, go into drafts, add whatever is pertinent because it's fresh in your mind, and hit send. You don't, there's no lose points or gains points if it's in a certain time period at all. So sometimes even presetting, and with technology today, you could preset, you would have templates for thank you notes and then just go in and add the personalized information so that you could do it. As you know, when we coach, we have these, I'm sure you all know, you have your pre and your post session forms. We usually recommend do them as soon as we're done, because it's fresh in your mind. Same thing here. If you're doing an informational interview or you're meeting with somebody, build in that time. So if you have a half an hour meeting, really it should be a 40, in your mind, it's 40 minutes. That gives you 10 minutes when you're done to take care of whatever follow-up there is. So that's a really, usually an efficient way to do it, I say, even though I don't always do it that way.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, I think just scheduling that in, making it part of the process. Making it part of the process is, okay, conversation with someone, or, coffee or whatever it might be. Okay, time to send that thank you after. I love that.
You can even make like follow-up Fridays, right? I mean, you can set aside, put on your calendar just a recurring self-only meeting that's an hour somewhere on Fridays. And then every time you chat with somebody, just copy paste their name and throw it into your notes for that event. When that pops up Friday afternoon, you got a list of everyone you talk to, you spend an hour sending out follow-up notes. That also keeps you, for those that were asking, hey, how much time to spend and how do you keep it on a habit? Well, if that follow-up Friday pops up on your calendar, there's no names on it, you realize, I have follow-up Friday alerting here, and I don't have a single person to follow up with. So instead, I better spend this hour maybe doing a little outreach or whatever it might be. But that way you can not have things fall off your radar, keep them bucketed so you don't feel like it's taking over your life, right? You have to always be doing this. But give yourself that little bit of reserve time.
Love that. Awesome.
This
It doesn't have to be
like
Friday,
the
it's not
image,
just level iteration.
yeah, like the image that's coming to my mind is like a vegetable garden. Like it's like time that we're like planting veggies right now, right? But if we were to just plant our tomatoes and then leave them, would they grow, right? Like we have to water them, we have to fertilize them, and like it's just like your garden, or it's just like the relationships that you have in your life, right? Like you have to like nurture them and like, invest in them. You have to invest in your personal development. You have to invest in your network, right? Like, and not adding that as like another thing to do, but it's like, it's almost like a habit creation, right? Like, and if the calendar thing is going to work for you, if there's other systems in place that are going to work, that's going to, help hold you accountable to that. But you can't expect to have tomatoes at the end of summer if you're not going to, put in the work now, right? So I would just offer that analogy.
Oh, Kate, I love that analogy so much. And that's such a good one. And even there's a good lesson in that analogy too, which is to remember that the work you have to do is not asking the tomatoes to grow, right? It's you putting work in, you to nurture these contacts. It can't just be all one-sided asks. If you want it doesn't sound like a networking tip, but it is. If you're trying to network, let's say in a given industry, make sure you're reading about that industry. Make sure you're reading the trade publications or listening to the podcasts or just consuming the information. So you have something to share, something to give to other people. Hey, did you hear this great podcast about XYZ, or did you hear this? And then if they have heard of it, great, you've got a conversation starter. And if they haven't heard of it, you've provided value. But you're giving value out, not just always asking for value.
Please read what Nicole just put in the chat.
I was just going to say.
Such a
What
great
did she
comment.
say?
So Nicole said sometimes, you write this really thoughtful thing and then you forget to send it, then you're embarrassed and you don't want to send it. So really, she's saying, great start. Just, hey, good meeting you. Here's my contact information. And it's so true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add a little addendum to this, which is if it's been too long and you're embarrassed, say that. Hey, I thought I really meant to send this to you, but I didn't. So here it is, and I'm a little embarrassed, but really thank you for meeting with me, and I really enjoyed our conversation about cookies. because it's okay to go back. Again, you're just reopening that connection. That's okay to do. You know what? No one's perfect, and none of us. And again, to John's point earlier, if someone gets that and their first instinct is to be mean to you, this is not someone you want in your network. I mean, it's just not someone you want to have a connection with. So they're either going to ignore it or they're going to respond positively, like, I do that all the time. Thank you so much for being on.
Right. They'll probably say, I was thinking the same thing and I was too embarrassed to send you an email. So I'm so glad you sent me one.
I love that. Nicole was like, I literally wrote that in an email. I'm so embarrassed. This has taken me so long to follow up. See, CEO of a company, still, we're all human. And I think also remembering that anyone that we're networking with, or even if it is that kind of that upward network, right? There's kind of that upward trajectory. There's someone that's in a higher position that you are, whatever it might be. They started somewhere. They were not just born a CEO or director or whatever it is. They went through and probably had way more issues and challenges to go along with it. Didn't have to do with where we didn't have social media or LinkedIn or anything. That was like calling people and asking for meetings and coffee. So I love that.
Okay, so I'm old, so I'll tell you, before digital networking, we used to have to do it in person. And what we would do is we would get the layout of the room and you would know who was attending the event and you would have to target. And you would have to try to do research without the internet to figure out who was who and who was part of which company and how were you going to get to them and what were you going to open with and what was your 30 seconds. Believe me, this so much better. So many more options for organic growth, for making connections. That was so tedious and so upsetting. And you want to talk about triggering and anxiety, and even the people who were really good at it sucked at it for those reasons, because we all knew what we were there for. There was nothing about it that felt natural or genuine.
So like to that point, Sherry, one of the earlier questions on the slides was like, what's the hardest thing about networking in 2021 then, right? Like what I'm hearing you say is there's also a lot more, obviously it's the internet makes things challenging, but it's also a great resource. So I'm just wondering like, yeah, like kind of posing that question then on kind of a flip side, I would be curious to see what you have to say.
Oh, about using the internet?
Yeah, or just like this year, like it's just like you were talking about back in the day, what it was like to network, right? And how it was so much more challenging. But this question is saying, you know, what do you find most challenging today?
Yeah.
I think the internet and digital networking gives people who are introverted or who really have anxiety surrounding this opportunities to network in a way that wasn't available in a safe way that feels good for them. So I think I said earlier, it's really important to lean into what works for you. And before you didn't have choices. If you weren't,
right.
You didn't network. Now, like Johnny said, let's call them conversations. Like you said, for you like to make really strong relationships. There's so many ways to do that with the internet, because also you can prepare yourself with information. It's much more readily available. Like John said, find out what's going on in the industry. Is there an article? Did the company do an initiative? Is there somebody that there's so many ways in to find your comfort zone to do that. I think there's a way for everyone to find what their sweet spot is in having conversations and chats that don't have to feel so overtly networked.
Yeah.
For me.
I think that when I think about the challenges that all of these phenomenal tools present, the biggest challenge that I envision, and then this bears out in conversations with clients, is that anything that makes the actual process easier, which the internet certainly does and LinkedIn certainly does, also increases the noise ratio, right? When networking was a matter of having to put a lot more physical effort in and physically go somewhere and do all these things that weren't just click of a button, the very fact that you were doing that was kind of a separator and was the social proof of value. Whereas now, you have to do a little more to build back up the social proof of value. I think many people, if I feel like they have a mistake they make in networking, it's focusing too much on those discrete networking actions, those sending of messages, those asking for informational interviews, and don't focus enough on building the foundation behind it of who do you look like when I go dig into you? When I get, if I'm the other person on the other side that gets this initial cold outreach or a message or such and such said I should speak to you, I click on your profile. I click on whoever. I just want to, are you about to try and sell me Bitcoin? Are you about to invite me into your pyramid scheme? I don't know. I want to see. If what I see is someone having conversations with other people or offering help or just being a human, I'm all about it. I love it. If I see kind of this utterly blank wall of nothing and I can't find anything on you and I can't research anything on you, the incentive for someone to respond to that is lower. So I think that that's the most challenging thing, is recognizing that independent of the discrete networking actions, you have to be spending at least a little bit of time on that personal branding, building up some sort of foundation of being searchable, findable, identifiable, letting people be able to find something out about you and not trying to be mysterious. And that's outside of a lot of people's comfort zones, right? Being open like that in a public way. Baby steps. Don't try to do it all at once if it's out of your comfort zone. But one small LinkedIn article, it's free to publish a LinkedIn article and it just stays on your thing forever. So a small 2-paragraph LinkedIn article about a topic that you love is a lot. I mean, that is a lot to demonstrate that you are somebody with value to offer out to the world. So it's challenging, but I also think so rewarding to do.
Don't forget the hashtags so you can be found afterwards.
Yes. Awesome. I love that. All right. Well, I love this conversation. I feel like we could keep talking about conversations for a long time. See what I did there? See what I did there, everybody? But as part of, so wrapping this up, I feel like we all have, this is phenomenal. I could not take notes fast enough on all of the great things you all have been saying. But I feel like this is a really great time to move into our breakout rooms. So everyone who is still with us, thank you so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to break out into different rooms, and thank you all for responding and answering the questions when you checked out on your industries and everything. And what we have realized, and through our experience, and coaches, you can speak to